Glock just dropped something the firearms community didn't see coming. December 2025 marks the arrival of the V-Series, and it's already stirring up serious conversation. This isn't Gen 6. This isn't a simple refresh with a new color or minor tweak. This is Glock hitting the reset button on almost their entire lineup, discontinuing over half their current models, and rolling out a completely reworked internal architecture. The gun world is buzzing. Prices are climbing on older models, and everyone's asking the same thing. What exactly is the V-Series, and should anyone care? Let's start with what Glock actually did. Starting November 30th, 2025, most of the current lineup, models like the G17, G19, G20, G21, G22, G23, and nearly all Gen 3 and Gen 4 variants are being phased out. Only the slimline models like the G43, G43X, and G48 will continue unchanged. Everything else gets replaced by V-marked pistols beginning in December. The initial rollout includes the G17V, G19V, G19XV, G45V, G26V, G20V MOS, G23V, G23V MOS, G21V MOS, and G44V. Distributor exclusives like the G19CV, G45CV, G17CV, and a G19XV MOS-TB variant are also in the pipeline. Why the sudden overhaul? Glock hasn't come out and said it directly, but the writing's on the wall. Over the past few years, U.S. regulators have been cracking down hard on firearms that can be easily converted into fully automatic weapons. Glock switches, those tiny illegal devices that turn a semi-auto Glock into a machine gun, have become a massive legal and public relations nightmare. California passed Assembly Bill 1621, which bans pistols that accept detachable magazines and can be converted into full auto configurations. Cities like Chicago, Seattle, and Newark have filed lawsuits accusing Glock of negligence for not preventing these conversions. 2 states even filed civil suits claiming Glock's design makes it too easy for criminals to manufacture illegal machine guns. Facing all this pressure, Glock decided to redesign internally before courts or lawmakers forced them to. The V likely stands for verified or just version. Glock hasn't officially confirmed. Some think it's a nod to the Roman numeral 5, signaling an evolution of Gen 5 rather than a jump to Gen 6. Either way, Glock describes the V-Series as a modernization effort to ensure innovation and compliance with evolving firearm standards. Translation, they're closing the loopholes that made illegal conversions possible while simplifying production and standardizing features across the board. Now, what's actually different? From the outside, almost nothing. Hold a Gen 5 G19 next to a G19V, and most shooters won't notice any visual changes beyond a small V engraving near the model number. The grip angle stays the same. The slide profile looks identical. The ergonomics remain exactly what Glock users expect. But open them up, and the story changes completely. The V-Series features redesigned trigger components, a revised slide backplate assembly, and internal geometry adjustments specifically engineered to block auto-sear installation. Former Glock armorer Mark Dunlop described the updates as invisible to the naked eye but structurally significant. The changes close small engineering loopholes without altering the external design or shooting experience. Ergonomics haven't changed because they didn't need to. Glock's grip angle and frame geometry have remained consistent for decades, and the V-Series keeps that tradition alive. The same interchangeable backstraps found on Gen 5 models carry over, allowing shooters to adjust grip size for hand fit. The ambidextrous slide stop and reversible magazine release also remain standard. The finger grooves that Gen 4 introduced and Gen 5 removed are still gone. For anyone familiar with Gen 5 ergonomics, the V-Series feels immediately comfortable. Nothing about the handling changes. The pistol sits in the hand the same way, points naturally, and maintains the same low-bore axis that Glock has always been known for. Recoil management also stays consistent with previous generations. Glock's dual recoil spring system, introduced in Gen 4 and carried through Gen 5, continues in the V-Series. This setup reduces felt recoil and improves muzzle control during rapid-fire strings. The short recoil operation and tilting barrel lockup remain unchanged, so the shooting dynamics feel familiar. The V-Series doesn't introduce any new recoil mitigation technology because Glock's existing system already works effectively. Shooters moving from a Gen 5 to a V model won't notice any difference in how the gun handles recoil or how it cycles. Durability is where the V-Series makes subtle but meaningful improvements. The internal updates aren't just about preventing illegal modifications, they also enhance long-term reliability. Reinforced trigger bar housings, modified slide plates, and striker channels built to tighter tolerances improve component longevity. The revised backplate assembly reduces wear on internal parts, which could extend service life in high round count scenarios. Glock's reputation for durability has always been strong, but the V-Series appears designed to handle even more stress over time. The materials remain the same: Glock's standard polymer frame and treated steel slide, but the internal architecture benefits from decades of field data and engineering refinement. Performance differences between the V-Series and previous Glocks are minimal in practical shooting. Accuracy remains consistent with Gen 5 models. The Marksman barrel introduced in Gen 5, which features improved rifling for better precision, carries over to the V-Series. Trigger pull weights stay in the same range, typically between 5 and 6 pounds depending on the model. The break, reset, and overall feel of the trigger remain nearly identical to Gen 5. The changes are internal and structural, not functional in a way that alters day-to-day performance. Law enforcement agencies and civilian shooters alike will find the transition seamless. So why are people excited? Part of it comes down to standardization. Glock's decision to consolidate its lineup simplifies production, reduces overlapping SKUs, and creates a more predictable platform for future development. For builders and enthusiasts, this means clearer compatibility guidelines and a more robust aftermarket moving forward. The V-Series establishes a unified baseline that Glock can build on for years, which could lead to better long-term support and more innovative accessories. Additionally, the V-Series opens doors in restrictive states. California, Massachusetts, New Jersey, and other jurisdictions with strict firearm laws may approve V models for sale because the internal changes address regulatory concerns. That expands Glock's legal footprint and gives shooters in those states access to new Glock pistols for the first time in years. Collectors and early adopters are also driving interest. The V-Series represents a clear break from previous generations, making early V-marked pistols potentially valuable down the line. Conversely, late-run Gen 5 models are becoming harder to find as production wanes down, which could turn them into sleeper collectibles. The firearms community loves limited runs and transitional models, so both sides of the cutoff are seeing increased attention and rising prices. But the V-Series isn't without downsides. The biggest issue right now is parts compatibility. Not all aftermarket components designed for Gen 5 will work with V models. Trigger kits, slide plates, and internal assemblies may not fit due to the updated geometry. Builders who rely on specific aftermarket parts will need to wait for manufacturers to catch up and release V-compatible versions. That could take months, and not every accessory company will update their lineup immediately. Generic Glock-compatible parts won't necessarily work, so shooters need to verify compatibility before purchasing upgrades. Another concern is short-term availability. Once Glock stops producing Gen 5 models, supply will tighten. The V-Series won't instantly fill shelves, which means a gap period where both old and new models are scarce. Dealers expect sellouts and price inflation on Gen 3 and Gen 4 pistols as collectors scramble to grab discontinued models. For anyone planning to buy a Glock soon, timing matters. Waiting for V models means potentially dealing with limited stock and higher demand. Buying a Gen 5 now locks in a proven platform but means missing out on the updated internal architecture. There's also the question of whether the V-Series is necessary for the average shooter. If someone already owns a Gen 5 Glock, the V-Series doesn't offer any functional advantages that justify replacing a perfectly good pistol. The ergonomics, accuracy, and reliability are essentially identical. The internal changes matter for regulatory compliance and long-term platform development, but they don't change how the gun shoots or performs in the field. For new buyers, starting with a V model makes sense because it provides a modernized foundation. For existing Glock owners, sticking with what they have is perfectly reasonable unless they're building something new or want to stay on the cutting edge. Legal and compliance considerations also play a role. The V-Series addresses specific regulatory concerns, but firearm laws vary widely by state and locality. Builders planning upgrades involving triggers, barrels, or serialized components need to ensure everything stays within legal boundaries. Working with reputable vendors who understand the V-Series and state-specific regulations helps avoid compliance issues. Keeping receipts and documentation also protects shooters during inspections or resale situations. So is the V-Series worth buying? That depends entirely on the shooter's situation. For builders and enthusiasts who want to start fresh on the latest platform, the V-Series offers a forward-compatible foundation with clearer upgrade paths and long-term aftermarket support. For collectors, the V-Series represents a historic shift in Glock's product strategy. Early V-marked pistols will likely become sought after in the future, especially first-run models. At the same time, late production Gen 5 pistols could see appreciation as the last examples of the old platform. Either way, the cutoff creates collectability on both sides, making this a unique moment for anyone interested in Glock's history. If anyone is planning a new build or buying their first Glock, they should seriously consider starting with a V model. The platform is designed for the future, and getting in early ensures compatibility with upcoming accessories and long-term manufacturer support. Whether it becomes the future of the brand depends on how shooters in the aftermarket respond, but all eyes are on what comes next. If you enjoyed this breakdown, hit the like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next video.